The patrol siren shattered the stillness of early morning as Deputy Torres stood paralyzed, watching the drama unfold directly in front of the station house. A well-dressed black woman was being restrained and shoved toward a squad car by officers Mendez and Cardoso. Her face held an unnerving calm that clashed sharply with the roughness of the arrest. "This choice will haunt you forever," she told Officer Mendez in a level voice. He merely grinned and ratcheted the cuffs tighter around wrists already bearing old marks. "Another wannabe big shot in custody," Cardoso jeered, jerking her forward with needless brutality. "Dressed up like she's somebody important." Oliveira, 45, felt the sharp edge of metal digging into her skin while rage quietly burned inside. 12 years on the federal bench, and she had never pictured a quick stop for fuel ending in such degradation. Half an hour earlier she had been driving to a nationwide judicial gathering when the two officers intercepted her at the gas pump, barking for identification in the exact condescending manner reserved for those they viewed as not belonging. "Take these off right now," Helena commanded, voice steady and clear. "I am informing you that I am a federal judge. Identification is inside my purse." "Of course it is," Mendez said with an exaggerated eye, "and I'm running for president. Come up with something better while we drive you in." Torres, just starting his shift, hesitated when he saw what was happening. "What's she being charged with?" "False personation, Chief," Mendez answered. "Caught her carrying a counterfeit judicial badge in her bag. Criminals these days sure get creative." Helena inhaled slowly, summoning the steady composure that years on the bench had drilled into her. A handful of bystanders drifted closer, phones were already recording. Officers had engineered the scene to be public, humiliating, and unmistakable. "I am formally requesting my phone call," Helena stated, her tone revealing none of the inner storm. "Will that be to your girlfriend or some ambulance chaser who'll cry racism?" Cardoso snickered and traded a look with Mendez. Once inside the station she endured the standard processing, photographs, fingerprints. At every stage she quietly restated her name and judicial position. The officer's laughter grew louder with each repetition. "Dr. Torres, let me dial one number and this resolves itself in moments," she urged when they finally brought her to his office. Something about her unwavering gaze disturbed. It held neither terror nor fury, only rock-solid certainty that twisted his gut. 5 minutes, he granted, nudging the desk phone toward her while Mendez and Cardoso observed with cocksure smiles. Helena entered a number etched in memories, then a rich baritone, Judge Montero speaking. "Ricardo, it's Helena Oliveira. I'm in custody at Central Station, accused of impersonating a public official. Trying to verify my credentials and placed me in public restraints." A short, loaded silence followed. "Hand the phone to whoever's supervising." Torres lifted the receiver with growing discomfort. His color faded as the voice on the line delivered instruction. Mendez and Cardoso sensed the shift, their grins slowly dissolved. "Yes, Your Honor." "No, sir." "Right now, sir." None of the officers realized that Helena Oliveira was far more than an ordinary federal judge. For the previous 3 years she had discreetly headed a covert unit examining police misconduct and entrenched racial bias throughout the justice apparatus. That morning's staged humiliation would ignite reforms nobody anticipated. "Remove the cuffs immediately," Deputy Torres ordered, his complexion now ghostly pale. As the officers grudgingly complied, Helena turned her gaze toward the cell phone lenses still filming through the station's windows. "If this tale of prejudice and overreach stirred you, consider subscribing to witness how a single call would dismantle not only those officers' livelihoods, but the corrupt structure they embodied." The atmosphere inside the precinct grew thick when the doors swung open and Helena stepped out into a sudden explosion of camera flashes from rapidly multiplying phones. Deputy Torres trailed behind, mumbling apologies no one accepted, his face etched with unease. "Dr. Oliveira, please recognize we were simply adhering to procedure." There was no "stop right there," Helena cut in, her voice quiet yet razor-sharp. "Save the platitudes." Her eyes located Jenny, the young gas station clerk who had captured the entire encounter from the start. Jenny gave a subtle nod, she still had the footage. Sometimes the smallest witnesses become the most powerful. Riding back to her hotel, Helena sat in silence, projecting calm professionalism. Only after the room door clicked shut did she permit herself a private moment. Her fingers shook faintly as they traced the raw indentations left by the cuffs, not from fright, but from a tightly leashed fury smoldering beneath the surface. "Temporary scars, lasting accountability," she whispered, methodically documenting the marks with her phone camera. The video call connected on the second ring. "Dr. Oliveira, are you all right?" Cesar Valente, her trusted legal aide of 5 years, spoke with his usual measured calm even though he sensed trouble. "Cesar, cancel my conference appearance and initiate the Akita protocol at once." The young men straightened, recognizing the emergency sequence they had hoped never to trigger. They finally went too far, didn't they? They didn't just cross the line, they tap-danced across it. Helena recounted the morning's events while Cesar jotted notes, his expression darkening with each detail. What the precinct never suspected was that over 3 years Helena and Cesar had carefully catalogued 347 parallel incidents, black professionals demeaned, detained, or assaulted by officers who later cited mistaken identity or standard procedure. Victims, dreading retaliation or doubting the system, never filed formal grievances. "I'm sending encrypted access to the task force archive," she said. "Pull everything, complete service histories on Mendez and Cardoso, every buried complaint, every pattern of selective enforcement." Caesar paused. "Doctor, if we pursue this, it won't stop at 2 officers." Fully aware, Caesar. "The moment has arrived." 3 years of evidence was gathered precisely for today. Following morning, as Helena ate breakfast in the hotel dining room, officers Mendez and Cardoso appeared alongside Deputy Torres. Their expressions blended awkward shame with barely concealed bitterness. "Mr. Oliveira," Torres began, "we've come to deliver our deepest apologies for yesterday's unfortunate misunderstanding." Helena studied them in silence, noting how Mendez avoided her eyes while Cardoso held a defiant glare, as though she had engineered their discomfort. "Misunderstanding," she echoed softly, lifting her coffee cup. "The term for racial profiling and abuse of authority." "Ma'am," Cardoso cut in, irritation leaking through, "we followed routine identification steps." Response didn't help de-escalate. Helena's faint smile sent a chill through the 3 men. "Fascinating. I'd love to hear which protocol justifies cuffing someone before confirming identity, or which one permits disregarding constitutional protections." Deputy Torres cleared his throat nervous. "Doctor, we're here to make peace. The officers face administrative leave, and we hope to settle this quietly." "Naturally you do," Helena replied, gently closing her notebook. "Particularly since Officer Mendez has 7 prior similar complaints in 2 years, all mysteriously dismissed. Officer Cardoso displays a consistent pattern of racially selective contacts." The room fell into stunned silence. The men exchanged panicked looks. "You," Torres started, then caught himself. "Those are internal personnel files." Helena rose smoothly, collecting her things. "No, Deputy. This is institutional discrimination on the verge of becoming a landmark precedent." Not yet grasp was that, at that exact moment, Cesar Valente was briefing Judge Montero and 5 additional federal judges with a comprehensive dossier, not merely Helena's incident, but hundreds of comparable cases forming a chilling picture of normalized abuse. Still, footage of her arrest had already surpassed 3 million views online, propelled by hashtags #JusticeForHelena and #EndPoliceBias dominating national trends. Within 48 hours the video had become a nationwide flashpoint. News channels looped the images. Legal analysts dissected the encounter on every panel. Protesters massed outside the central station calling for the officer's immediate termination. Mendez sat alone in his living room, a half-drunk bottle beside him, phone buzzing relentlessly with notifications, from online vitriol to former colleagues suddenly ghosting him. His world was unraveling at speed. "You watching the news?" So asked over the phone, voice trembling. "They're talking 8 years, abuse of power, false imprisonment, racial discrimination. Are back," Mendez answered, feigning assurance while flipping channels only to see his own face again. "It was an honest mistake. Knew she was actually a judge." "Anyone who bothered looking at her ID, you fool," Cardoso snapped. "Finished." Torres called. Internal Affairs launched a full probe. "We're suspended starting tomorrow." The doorbell rang. Through the peephole Mendez saw a process server. His hands shook as he accepted the envelope. "Subpoena, preliminary hearing," he read aloud, nausea rising. "Defendant, Miguel Mendez." Meanwhile the federal regional courthouse's grand auditorium overflowed with reporters, advocates, and legal observers. Judge Ricardo Montero stepped to the podium with Helena and Cesar seated beside him. "What occurred this week was never an isolated event," Montero declared, his resonant voice filling the space. It was the public face of a deep-rooted pathology long allowed to fester. The lights lowered, slides began. Statistics, photos, victim statements scrolled past. Cases flashed before the stunned crowd, black attorneys blocked from courtrooms, physicians mistaken for janitors, executives shadowed by mall security. Under Dr. Helena Oliveira's direction the Akita Task Force has, over 3 years, documented 347 comparable incidents, Montero continued. 114 formal complaints were lodged. 3% produced any discipline. Murmurs swelled when Deputy Torres's image appeared, accompanied by audio. "Look, Mendez, if it's another one of those troublemakers, don't waste time. Detain and we'll sort it later." This recording, legally obtained 2 weeks before Dr. Oliveira's arrest, reveals routine practice at Central Station, Cesar explained, taking the floor. Police commander in the front row stiffened, the public security secretary scribbled furious. "Now the decisive proof," Montero announced. Body camera footage rolled. Watching from the audience, lurched to his feet when he saw himself ordering, "Kill that camera, Cardoso. If she really matters we don't need footage." The hall exploded in outrage. Reporters shouted questions. Torres tried to flee but found bailiffs blocking the exit. Helena observed everything with tranquil composure. As exposure widened, more survivors emerged, emails flooded her inbox with videos, recordings, documents long buried out of fear. Mendez and Cardoso stared at the live feed, faces drained. This was no longer about suspensions or apologies. An entire apparatus stood revealed with them as its most visible representatives. Based on the evidence, Montero concluded, the High Court has mandated immediate oversight of Central Station, a statewide audit of enforcement practices, and permanent removal of those implicated pending criminal resolution. When proceedings adjourned, reporters swarmed Helena. A young journalist pushed forward. Dr. Oliveira, did you deliberately place yourself in that situation to expose systemic racism? She offered a small smile. I never intended to be shackled or humiliated. Once it happened, I faced a choice: become another voiceless casualty or leverage my position to amplify hundreds who had been muted before me. Same night, a hesitant knock sounded at Helena's door. Stood there, visibly shaken. Humiliated me, she said. Claimed I recorded without permission and harmed the company image. What Jenny could not foresee was that her firing would mark only the opening of a broader reckoning Helena had set in motion. Systems that once relied on silencing individuals were about to learn what real accountability looks like when truth breaks free in the digital age. 2 weeks later, the Court of Justice building felt transformed. The hushed hallways now teemed with journalists, activists, and everyday citizens drawn to what was already being termed the Helena case, a turning point in confronting institutional racism. Principal Chamber. A special legislative panel heard testimony from Jenny, the former gas station employee. Her voice, tentative at first, grew steadier with each sentence. I started filming. I knew something unjust was unfolding. I never expected to lose my job, but I would make the same decision again. Some principles outweigh a paycheck. From the front row, Helena watched, pride and resolve mingling in her expression. 14 days her existence had radically shifted. The 347 victims catalogued by the Akita unit now possessed names, faces, and voices resonating nationwide. Personal indignity had ignited a countrywide movement. In a stark interrogation room across town, Officer Mendez confronted his new reality. Officer Miguel Mendez, our review uncovered 37 documented instances of biased contacts and disproportionate force, overwhelmingly targeting black individuals. Your termination is effective immediately. Criminal proceedings will continue independently. Cardoso fared no better. Years of racist remarks he had posted online were exhumed and broadcast. Corporate sponsors withdrew from the gas station that dismissed Jenny until the desperate owner publicly reversed course, offering reinstatement, promotion, and back wages. Deputy Torres's fall proved most striking. After 22 years commanding Central Station, he was not merely dismissed, he became a federal defendant. Station security footage exposed decades of differential treatment by race and class. The men who once wielded unquestioned authority now could not enter a grocery store without facing accusing stares. On the morning of the disciplinary tribunal, Helena crossed the courthouse plaza surrounded by young black attorneys and law students who regarded her as an emblem of defiance. He walked at her side, briefcase heavy with years of painstakingly gathered proof. I never dreamed it would unfold this way, he admitted. We launched the task force. I figured meaningful reform would take a decade. Helena adjusted her robe with quiet pride. Sometimes the system only moves when forced to confront its own glaring hypocrisy. Ripples spread rapidly. National Judicial College instituted compulsory training on implicit bias. Police departments nationwide rewrote encounter guidelines. Law schools added the Helena case to core curricula. 6 months later, during a ceremony at the Supreme Court, Helena was named head of the newly established Office of Judicial Integrity. Her nationally televised inaugural address reached millions. That night in handcuffs, 2 things hung in the balance: my individual dignity and the credibility of the entire system. I could have used my title to escape quietly and resume my life. Who would speak for those without a judge on speed dial? Who would expose the injuries demanding repair? Cameras caught Jenny, now a law student funded by a scholarship Helena had established, clapping with tears in her eyes, flanked by dozens of other survivors emboldened to tell their stories after Helena told hers. Mendez and Cardoso attempted fresh starts in distant cities, but the internet never forgets. One ended up a nighttime parking lot guard, the other pumped gas in a rural outpost, an irony commentators did not miss. One stormy afternoon, an envelope arrived at Helena's chambers. It lay a handwritten note from ex-Deputy Torres, penned under house arrest while serving his sentence. Dr. Oliveira, it required 40 years for me to grasp what you proved in a single evening. Justice is not a theory, it is constructed or demolished with every choice we make. Apologies come too late, yet I want you to know your courage reshaped not only the institution, but also an aging officer who once thought himself untouchable. Akita unit evolved into a permanent body with chapters in every state. Jenny now directed a nationwide legal aid network for victims of police misconduct. Caesar, the court's youngest ever assistant judge, carried forward their work. And Helena's journey entered textbooks as proof that one individual, armed with sufficient resolve at the precise moment, can spark transformations once deemed unattainable. On a crisp autumn morning, while lecturing university students, a shy 12-year-old black girl raised her hand. Dr. Helena, weren't you scared when they put the handcuffs on? Helena smiled, the memory now distant yet vivid. Of course I was afraid. Fear arises naturally when injustice strikes. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the choice to value something more than fear itself. When you stand between the ease of silence and the difficulty of truth, remember, the heaviest cuffs are never those on our wrists, but those that shackle our voices. The girl nodded, eyes bright with possibility, part of a new generation destined to inherit a world made slightly fairer by a judge who, even bound, refused to be quieted. If this chronicle of resilience and systemic change moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more accounts of everyday courage that prove small acts of defiance can unleash quiet revolutions, reshaping not only institutions but the very people who defend them.